Hi guys, welcome. Hope you're all doing good. Let us start with the next session of news in 30 minutes. And in this session, let us look at some of the important issues on 22nd of December 2023. Let's get on right to it. The first issue is Indian language AI tool Bhasini that is used to translate the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech. Okay, recently Prime Minister Narendra Modi gave a speech in an event called Kashi Tamil Sangamam. Okay, and in this particular speech, the Prime Minister of our country spoke in Hindi language. However, the audience were majority from Tamil language. So, the speech was in real time. The speech was in real time translated to Tamil. The speech was given in Hindi, which was in real time translated to Tamil with the help of an AI tool called Bhasini. That's why Bhasini is in news. So let us learn a little bit about this AI powered Bhasini tool, okay, which provided a real time translation of our Prime Minister's speech to Tamil language. Okay, so if I take Bhasini as I told you, it is an AI tool. Okay, it is an artificial intelligence project. It is an artificial intelligence project, and this project is taken up by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. It is taken up under, this is a language project. Okay, this is a AI language project that is taken up by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. It was launched in 2022. All right, and it was launched as a part of National Language Translation Mission. It was launched as a part of National Language Translation Mission. Okay, basically its goal is to establish a national public digital library. Its goal is to establish a national public digital library for languages. National public digital library for languages. Okay, for languages. All right, and this is one of the goal. The second goal, this is one of the goal, and the second goal is to increase the number of content, that is available in regional languages. To increase the number of content available in regional languages. Okay, so to again just summarize, Bhasini is an artificial intelligence language tool or a project that is taken up under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. It was launched in 2022 under National Language Translation Mission, and this National Language Translation Mission, the main objective is twofold. One is to create a national public digital library for different languages, as well as to increase the amount of content present in the digital medium, especially in regional languages. Okay, so this is the main job, and under this we have launched something called this Bhasini AI tool. Okay, so this tool is now able to text translate. This tool is able to text translate 22 different languages of India. Okay, and it is able to speech recognize. It is able to speech recognize around 12 to 14 languages. Okay, it is able to speech recognize around 12 to 14 languages, whereas it is able to text translate 22 languages. Okay, and why is this important? Why is this project important? Is in our constitution, if you take the 8th schedule of our constitution, the 8th schedule of the constitution recognizes almost 22 languages in India. Okay, it has recognized almost 22 languages in India. Along with this, if you consider other languages of India, if you take all the diverse languages of India, there are more than 100 languages with more than thousands of dialects with these languages. Okay, so if we have to penetrate our knowledge and digital medium to all parts of the country, we need to have a very good translation tool, and hence we are developing this Bhasini translation tool. Okay, the next is, this will not only help in translation, it will also help in bringing out our diverse cultures, bringing out our diverse religion, bringing out our diverse languages and the customs and traditions that are there in every nook and corner of our country. The reason is, when more and more content are available in regional languages, people will become more aware of the amount of diversity that we have, not only with respect to languages, but also with respect to cultures, religion, languages, and other customs. Okay, so this enshrines as well as upholds the diversity of India and enriches the diversity of India. Okay, now one more interesting feature in this portal of Bhasini is, if you look at Bhasini in the website, they have another in the dashboard they have another option called Bhasha Dan. Okay, they have an option called Bhasha Dan. Okay, Bhasha Dan is a crowdfunding initiative. Okay, it is a crowdfunding initiative. However, here you don't have to give money to it. It is very interestingly designed as Bhasha Dan can be taken as 4 different verticals. There is Sunodan, okay, then there is Likodan, then there is Dekodan, and then there is Bolodan. Okay, so basically these are different ways in which the users like us can participate to enrich the language model of Bhasini. The more we we participate, we provide more and more data set for the artificial intelligence to learn. So these will act as an input in order to perfect the mechanism of the Bhasini AI language tool. There are different there are minute changes, but these are different ways you can participate. For example, see, if they say Bolodan, it is just that you have to say sentences. It is just that you have to say sentences in your voice, and it will help in translating. Dekodan is basically you have to look at different texts and look at its translation in your language. Likodan is basically you are writing the sentences and then you are observing the translation happening. Sunodan again is where users are required to type. They are required to type what they hear. Okay, so they are required to type what they hear. They are going to write sentences and look at the translation. Deko is you just look at the translation and see if it is correct in different regional languages. Bolodan is you say the sentences and look at the translations. So in this way, people can participate in this open crowdfunding initiative that is under Bhasini, which is called Bhasha Dan. Again, this is a very interesting feature. Okay, however, this is still an enriching tool, and the moment it is able to translate in real time all the 22 languages enshrined in the constitution, then we can say that it is one of the very good achievement by the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology to uphold the diversity of India. Okay, so that is about this issue. This is how we bring technology, and we use technology to bring our nation much more closer, to improve the integrity of our nation and to uphold the diversity of our nation. This is how we use science and technology in a good manner. Okay, so this is the concluding part of this issue. Let us go to the next issue of the day. The next issue is Lok Sabha passes a bill on appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners. It removes CGI from the selection committee. Okay, so this bill is passed, so it is necessary for you to now know what are the norms or what are the procedures that are established within this particular act for the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner as well as the election commissioners. You have to understand what are the appointment procedures for CEC and ECs. Okay, so let us understand from before up to the current time what has been the evolution of the appointment procedure. Now, usually in our Indian constitution, we know that the election commission is a constitutional body, and the election commission of India as chief election commissioners as well as election commissioners. Okay, now this chief election commission and election commissioners were appointed. They were appointed by the president. They were appointed by the president on the advice of the Council of Ministers. On the advice of the Council of Ministers. Okay, so this was basically the norm. The CEC as well as ECs were appointed by the president on the advice of the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers. So this was the norm. Now in 2023, the Supreme Court came up with a verdict that such appointment will be biased towards the government, the government can fix a person who is more biased towards the government in the very, very crucial position of Election Commission of India, which has to uphold free and fair elections. So the Supreme Court felt that if that free and fair elections has to be upheld, then we cannot allow the government alone to have a say in appointment of the chief election commissioners and election commissioners. And in that endeavor, the Supreme Court came up with a selection panel. It told that there has to be a selection panel. In this panel, there has to be PM, the Prime Minister of India. The second is the leader of opposition, and the third is the Chief Justice of India. And these three people are going to sit and select the CECs and ECs who are then to be appointed by the President. So basically, this was what the Supreme Court verdict had interpreted and created. Now, obviously, the government had to come up with a legislation to kind of give legality or to give legislative sanctity to the selection panel. And in that endeavor, today or in this last 2 days, the Lok Sabha has passed a bill that talks about the appointment of the CECs and election commissioners. Okay, so what is this bill and what is the procedure regarding this bill? Let us talk now. Now, the bill that is passed, it talks about two things. One is a search committee. It talks about a search committee, and then it talks about a selection committee. It talks about a search committee and then a selection committee. So, search committee are basically in charge of shortlisting. They are basically in charge of shortlisting 5 names. They are in charge of shortlisting 5 names for the consideration of selection committee. They are in charge of shortlisting of 5 names for the selection committee. Okay, and this search committee is headed by the Union Law Minister. It is headed by the Union Law Minister along with 2 Union Secretaries. It is headed by the Union Law Minister along with 2 Union Secretaries. So this is about the search committee. Okay, so they will shortlist 5 names, and these 5 names are further selected by a selection committee. Okay, now who will be within the selection committee? 1, it will be the Prime Minister of India. 2, it will be a union minister. It will be a union minister nominated by the Prime Minister. Okay, 3rd will be the leader of the opposition in Lok Sabha. Okay, if there is no leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha, then the leader of single largest party in the Lok Sabha will be considered as the leader of opposition. Okay, so basically, PM, the Prime Minister and the Union Minister nominated by PM and the leader of opposition of Lok Sabha, these 3 will act as the selection committee who can select within the shortlisted of 5 names. 2 things that you have to remember with respect to selection committee is, 1, as you know, compared to the Supreme Court selection committee, this selection committee does not have Chief Justice of India within it. Okay, it is very simple that they do not want to give the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner in the hands of judiciary. Already the judiciary is all the more powerful. The judiciary itself is appointing their own judges. If you give this power also to the power of CGI, then the judiciary will become very, very strategic, and it may imbalance the division of power. So in that regard, they have not allowed CGI to be part of the selection panel. The second is the selection committee. One more aspect that you should know is the selection committee need not always confine to the 5 names given by the search committee. It can go outside the 5 names and also consider the names to appoint the CEC and EC. Okay, so these are the 2 things that you should know from the selection committee. So overall, the chief election commissioner as well as election commissioners are crucial for free and fair elections of our country, and their appointment is done via search panel, which consists of Union Law Minister and 2 Union Ministers who are going to shortlist the names. And these names are being considered by the selection committee, which constitutes the Prime Minister of India, the Union Minister nominated by the Prime Minister, as well as the leader of opposition in the Lok Sabha. Okay, the names need not be confined by the selection committee. They can choose from outside the names as well. And the CGI, who was included by the Supreme Court in their judgment as a part of selection panel, is taken out, and CGI does not find its name in the selection panel in the appointment of chief election commissioners. So I hope you understood this particular issue. So it makes sense that they have removed the CGI, but it also is to be seen how the judiciary is going to review it once this moves to the court in order to test the constitutionality of this law. Will they devoid it under the name of ultrawires, or will they allow this particular search and selection panel, committee that has been set up to be continued for the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner? But what is certain is this is definitely a progressive move. Instead of just allowing the Chief Election Commissioner and election commissioners to be appointed under the discretion of the union government, at least now you have the say of leader of opposition. So leader of opposition is also part of the selection committee that makes the appointment more democratic. So in that way we can say that the move to appoint such high constitutional offices is a progressive move. With that, let us move to the next issue of the day. The next issue is another very technical concept that you have to learn. The technical concept is WHO pre-qualifies a second malaria vaccine manufactured by Serum Institute of India. Okay, so what is this pre-qualification? This is the technical term that you should learn. Okay, so before I get there, let me just talk about this vaccine. This is a vaccine, it is a malaria vaccine, and this is the second malaria vaccine that the WHO has approved. The name of this vaccine is R21 Matrix vaccine. Okay, it is R21 Matrix vaccine. This is produced, or this is developed by Oxford University. It is developed by Oxford University and it is being manufactured by Serum Institute of India. It is manufactured by Serum Institute of India. So what do you mean by WHO pre-qualifying a vaccine? Okay, what is the meaning of WHO pre-qualifying the vaccine? It means that it is pre-qualifying should be read as approving. Okay, in your mind, whenever you see WHO pre-qualifying a vaccine, it just means that WHO is giving the legitimacy that that vaccine is safe. Okay, so if we tell that WHO as pre-qualified a vaccine, okay, if we say that the WHO has pre-qualified the vaccine, one, that means that it is a very key vaccine that is necessary to prevent a particular disease. Two, it also improves the global accessibility of this vaccine. Okay, it improves the global accessibility of this vaccine. The third, it becomes a prerequisite. It becomes a prerequisite for UNICEF for vaccine procurement. Okay, that is under it becomes mandatory for UNICEF to procure this vaccine. Okay, the next is you have GAVI, GAVI. This is a vaccine alliance. Okay, this is a vaccine alliance, and this should compulsorily provide funding support. They should provide funding support. Okay, and basically the last is by providing this pre-qualification status to the vaccine, it is WHO is telling to the world that it is a safe and effective vaccine. Okay, so these are all the takeaways when a WHO has pre-qualified vaccine. So see, one, you have two words there, pre-qualified. Here pre means it becomes a prerequisite. Okay, it becomes a prerequisite. Qualified means it is safe and effective. Qualified means it is safe and effective. So this is what is the meaning of pre-qualified vaccine. Okay, that means if WHO has certified some vaccine as a pre-qualified vaccine, that means one, it is a key vaccine to prevent a sort of disease, any type of disease. Two, it wants to improve the global accessibility of this vaccine. The third is it becomes prerequisite for UNICEF to procure this particular vaccine to prevent a particular disease. Okay, for example, in this case, it is malaria problem. The next is the GAVI, that is Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunization. This Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunization, the funding of this becomes compulsory if a vaccine is having the status of pre-qualification. And the last is, it is a sign that WHO tells to the world that this vaccine is safe and effective. Okay, in this way, now coming back to the headlines, now if you read, WHO pre-qualifies a second malaria vaccine that is manufactured by Serum of India. So basically it is telling the world that we have to improve the global accessibility, we have to improve the funding support, we have to make UNICEF prerequisite in procuring this vaccine, and it is safe and effective, and that vaccine is R21 Matrix vaccine. Okay, why it is important is malaria is spreading rapidly in the world. Okay, we have more than 249 million malaria cases and 6 lakh deaths of malaria every year. Okay, this is huge, and if we have to prevent this huge cases as well as huge death, then we have to make sure that the vaccines are accessible to all people across the world. Hence, this vaccine is very, very important. Okay, now one more short thing that I just wanted to talk is about this GAVI, GAVI. Okay, so a brief preview about this. GAVI means Global Alliance. It means Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunizations. Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunization. Okay, so it is basically an alliance. It is basically an alliance that comes together these important institutions. The one is, it is an alliance of WHO plus UNICEF plus World Bank plus you have Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Okay, you have Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Okay, so these 4 institutions come together in the Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunizations. Pardon my handwriting. Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunization, and these will work with, they will work with 2 types of nations. One is donor nations and another is implementing nations. Okay, so they work with donor nations and implementing nations. Along with this, you have private agencies. They work with private agencies. Along with this, you have civil society organizations. Plus, they also work with research organizations. They work with research organizations. Plus, they work with vaccine manufacturers. They work with vaccine manufacturers. Okay, so this is what is the Global Alliance on Vaccines and Immunization. Their current report card is they have given vaccines to more than 1 billion children. They have given vaccine to more than 1 billion children across 78 countries. They have given vaccine to more than 1 billion children across 78 countries. So this shows the effectiveness of this alliance and the importance of this alliance in increasing the vaccine accessibility across the world, especially in the low and middle income countries. Okay, so I hope you understood 2 concepts here. One is what is this pre-qualification process of WHO, and also you understood what is this Global Alliance on Vaccine and Immunization. Okay, so this is about this issue. The next issue is reforming sovereign credit rating agencies is the need of the hour, is told by our chief economic advisor. Okay, so what are these sovereign credit rating agencies? Okay, if you take sovereign credit rating agencies, okay, if you take sovereign credit rating agencies, all right, these are credit rating agencies that rate sovereign countries. These are credit rating agencies that rate sovereign countries. They are, there are several. Example is Fitch, we have Moody's, we have Standard and Poor. Okay, these are all different credit rating agencies of the world. And what our chief economic advisor tells is their methodology is very, very poor. Especially their methodology to calculate something called willingness to pay. Okay, their methodology to calculate willingness to pay is very, very poor. Now, what these credit rating agencies do is they opt something called qualitative method. They opt something called qualitative method in order to calculate the willingness to pay. But what chief economic advisor says is you have to use quantitative method in order to arrive at the willingness to pay. The reason why chief economic advisor talks about quantitative method is because they can be quantified. You can use mathematics in order to derive to the problem, rather than using qualitative method is basically very discretionary. You use a lot of subjective criteria, and hence the subjective criteria will always be biased towards the Western economies and will always be biased towards developing countries. So this willingness to pay using qualitative method is actually not reflecting the true nature of world economy. That is what is the the narrative given by the chief economic advisor. And the chief economic advisor says that we have to use quantitative method because quantitative method is the use of max, and that means you are using objective criteria to come to a parameter that will assess the willingness to pay. So the most important part or the major problem that is happening is the way we are able to calculate this willingness to pay. Okay, we have to change it from qualitative method to quantitative method. That is what the chief economic advisor is telling. Okay, now why is it important for this credit rating agencies rating this sovereign countries? Okay, now the reason why it becomes important is these credit rating agencies, okay, these credit rating agencies, what they do, they rate on several sovereign countries. Okay, several sovereign countries. Now let us say that they rated one USA as a very high sovereign country like AAA, and if you take India, they rated this country as BBB. Now because they are rating India low, that means that India will attract less investors, because there is more, they feel that there is more risk, and because it attracts less investor and there is a feeling of more risk, whatever credit that India wants to attract, or whatever credit that India wants to collect, or it wants to mobilize, this credit India will mobilize at a high risk premium. At a high risk premium. So high risk premium means it will result in the paying of more interest rate by India. See, just because these credit rating agencies are calculating their rating in a wrong way, this is hurting how India can attract its investor. It is creating a perception of more risk, and because it's creating a perception of more risk, the credit that India wants to mobilize comes at a high risk premium that will result in high interest rate. Overall, if this credit rating agencies are so biased in rating sovereign countries, especially like middle income countries like India, then it becomes difficult for India to mobilize. Long term capital, because no one will be able to give them long term capital, and it makes the cost of borrowing very high, okay, or very costly. It makes the cost of borrowing very costly. So because credit rating agencies will impact the growth of a country directly, like a country like India, the chief economic advisor wants that they have to improve the parameter of how they are going to calculate the willingness to pay. Okay, one more statistics that the chief economic advisor gives is in the last 15 years, if you take India has moved from 12th largest economy. Okay, in the last 15 years, India has moved from 12th largest economy in 2008 to currently we are in 5th largest economy. Okay, we are currently in 5th largest economy in 2022. So if you take 12th largest economy to 5th largest economy in the last 15 years, you can look at the growth of India. Okay, India has grown tremendously. And the second is, along with this, in the last 15 years, India is having the second highest growth rate. India is having the second highest growth rate in terms of GDP across all nations in the world. Okay, now if you look at these two statistics, it shows that India is making a lot of progress in the last 15 years. But if you look at the credit rating agencies, these credit rating agencies have not changed the credit rating for the last 15 years for India. They have kept the credit rating as BBB minus. Now this shows that the credit rating agencies are completely not in tune with the lines of economic development of the world. Also, the variables and parameters as well as the indices that these people use are completely biased. They are completely discretionary, and they do not have any type of objectivity. They are completely subjective. So one, they are biased, they are discretionary, and completely lacking of objectivity. So this is the end conclusion. This is the reason why the chief economic advisor says we have to reform the sovereign credit rating agencies. The credit rating agencies will have a direct bearing on the economic activity of the sovereign country, and hence it is very, very necessary, especially for middle and low income countries. If we have to attract capital, attract investments, and make the cost of borrowing less, then these credit rating agencies have to reform themselves. Stop being so biased and stop being so subjective in only facilitating Western democracies or Western countries and putting down the middle and low income countries, especially the Asian nations, including India. So this is the conclusion of it. So this is this issue. The last issue of the day is another issue that is very, very important for your prelims and mains perspective, and that is the questionable searches under the Money Laundering Act. Okay. Now the author says that there has been the abuse of authority by the central investigating agencies and the abuse of process of court raising disturbing questions. Now let me just simplify what it means. So this Money Laundering Act, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, was an act that was brought out in 2002, the important agency that is in charge to stop any type of money laundering is the Enforcement Directorate. As we have discussed about Enforcement Directorate, it comes under the Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. Okay, it comes under the Ministry of Finance, the Department of Revenue. Okay, and what is happening is the recent Supreme Court judgments in Vijay Madan Lal versus Union of India case. In this case, as well as there is one more case, that is Pankaj Bansal versus Union of India case. In both these Supreme Court cases, Enforcement Directorate has been warned not to cause any type of excesses. That is, Enforcement Directorate has told that it is going beyond its jurisdiction in the name of enforcing the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Okay, now why is it going beyond its excesses? Let us find out. Okay, in both this Vijay Madan Lal Chowdhury versus Union of India case 2022 and in the Pankaj Bansal versus Union of India case 2023, in both the cases Enforcement Directorate was warned, and what was warned in these cases was Enforcement Directorate was told that the definition of proceeds of crime in the Act, the definition of proceeds of crime in Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. Okay, now this proceeds of crime is attached to the property if the property is brought illegally via the scheduled offences. Okay, what I'll just decipher what this means. Okay, what it means is the proceeds of crime will get attracted. If the property that is seized by the ED, is derived from the property that is brought illegally within the scheduled offences defined under the Act of PMLA. Okay, so in simple words, what it means is, if PMLA 2002, this is Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002, it has a list of scheduled offences, and within this list of scheduled offences, if whatever the property that the Enforcement Directorate has seized or whatever the investigation the Enforcement Directorate is doing, this investigations as well as the seized property on the proceeds of crime, these investigations and seized property on the proceeds of crime, this can be done if that proceeds of crime is being derived from the group of scheduled offences that has been given in the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. Okay, now what Supreme Court is telling is most of the cases that are being dealt by Enforcement Directorate falls in offences that does not fall in this particular group. Okay, when it does not fall in this particular group, then it is not within the jurisdiction of the Enforcement Directorate to investigate. That is what it is trying to tell. So to reiterate the point, it says the properties to be seized or the investigations that needs to be done over the proceeds of crime can be done by the Enforcement Directorate, provided that those offences fall under the list of scheduled offences as defined by the Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. But if Enforcement Directorate takes up those cases on those offences that do not fall in this list of scheduled offences, then it is not up to the jurisdiction of Enforcement Directorate to take that cases. This is the judgment given by the Supreme Court in the Vijay Madan Lal versus Chowdhury versus Union of India case 2022, thereby making sure that the abuse of authority is not done by the government of the day as well as the Enforcement Directorate. Okay, so I hope you understood this. Now, from the prelims perspective, I'll give you one what are the scheduled offences. From the mains perspective, I will give you how ED is resulting in damaging federalism in India. Okay, so if I take the mains perspective, how ED is damaging federalism in India is, now ED in several states, the Enforcement Directorate in several states is inquiring into the proceeds of crime. Okay, it is inquiring into the proceeds of crime, and these proceeds of crime are coming from alleged illegal sand mining. Okay, it is coming from alleged illegal sand mining. Okay, now this is what is happening. Now if you take the law, this sand mining is a minor mineral. Okay, it is a minor mineral, and this minor mineral is regulated by something called Mines and Minerals Act. Mines and Minerals Act 1957. Okay, and this Mines and Minerals Act 1957, as well as any offences committed under the Mines and Minerals Act 1957, it is penalized according to this act itself. There is a penal clause within this act, and the power to penalize comes in the ambit of state government. Okay, and this offences does not come under the scheduled offences. It does not come under the scheduled offences of Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. So when it does not come under the scheduled offences of 2002 of Prevention of Money Laundering Act, then how is it that the Enforcement Directorate is able to investigate on the proceeds of crime on the alleging illegal sand mining? Okay, now so rightly, according to the principles of federalism and according to the spirit of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act and the spirit of Mines and Minerals Act 1957, the offences committed for illegal sand mining should come under the state government, and the state government agency too should investigate on this and make proper penal case in front of the judiciary. But Enforcement Directorate is intervening in an offence that is not listed within the list of scheduled offences under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and this is how we are damaging the federalism of India. Is something that was brought to notice by the Supreme Court itself. Okay, so this is from the mains perspective. Now from prelims perspective, if I have to talk about the scheduled offences, of Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. So these scheduled offences of Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002 can be divided into two parts. One is Part A. The Act divides the offences into three parts: Part A, Part B, and Part C. It has divided it into three parts: Part A, Part B, and Part C. Okay, so Part A includes all those offences. It enumerates offences that are given in IPC section. It enumerates offences that are given under IPC. Okay, so these include, they can include criminal conspiracy, they can include waging war against government, they can include forgery, they can include counterfeiting, okay, they can include extortion, okay, and they can also include robbery. Okay, so these are all enumerated within the Part A. So Part A enumerates all those offences that are present in the IPC. Okay, so Part A basically delves with the core fabric. It deals with the core fabric of criminal activities. Okay, that is what is the Part A of scheduled offences under Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. The next is Part B. Part B mainly focuses on the offences done under Customs Act. So the offences under Customs Act, that is what is Part B, and this also will be those offences, all those offences that will be greater than 1 crore value. Only those offences that will be greater than 1 crore value will come under the Part B offences under Scheduled Offences of Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. And the last is Part C offences. So these offences are twofold. One is if it involves any type of cross-border implications. If the offences involves any type of cross-border implications, and the next type of offence is the next type of offence within Part C is willful attempt. Okay, willful attempt to evade taxes. Willful attempt to evade taxes, penalties, and interest. So if there is willful attempt to evade taxes, penalties, and interest, then again this also comes under Part C. For example, there was a act that was passed known as Black Money Act 2015. So this Black Money Act 2015 comes under the ambit of Part C. So these are some of the scheduled offences of Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. To summarize, the scheduled offences are divided into three parts. Part A as all those offences that are enumerated under IPC. This forms the core part of criminal activities. The Part B consists of all those offences that come under the breach of Customs Act. However, the value of these offences must be greater than 1 crore. The Part C has two parts. One is the offences that will have cross-border implications, and another is willful attempt to evade taxes, penalties, and interest. Okay, so these are the three parts. So according to the Supreme Court, the ED or the Enforcement Directorate can proceed with or can do the investigation or attach properties of the proceeds of crime if they are coming within the ambit of Part A, Part B or Part C. They cannot take part within those crimes or offences that do not come under the scheduled offences of Prevention of Money Laundering Act 2002. So this is what is the ruling given by the Supreme Court regarding the Enforcement Directorate. However, what we should realize is that these investigative agencies should not be used to damage or to bring imbalance between the central as well as the state's role within the country like India. Okay, with that, these were some of the important issues of the day. I hope it was helpful. If you liked this video, please make sure that you press the like button. You please share it with your friends so that the more the views, the more incentivized I am to do this on a regular basis. And please don't forget to subscribe and get your friends also subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much for all the love and support, guys. I'm going to see you tomorrow. Bye bye.